So last week, at the end of it, over the weekend, there was a ton of stuff going on in terms of negativity towards Xbox. And it all stemmed from Jeff Grubb during his Games Mess podcast saying that HiFi Rush didn't make the money it needed to make. And that just caused a lot of outlets, a lot of gaming journalists going out and writing articles like this. HiFi Rush reportedly failed to meet sales expectations. All of the stuff being completely reported on with zero evidence to these claims. Obviously, Jeff Grubb didn't provide a source for anything that he said. Now, Jeff Grubb himself, I think, actually does a pretty good job. I have nothing against Jeff Grubb. I think he does good reporting. He's been spot on leaks before, multiple leaks actually, and I'm sure he's gotten stuff wrong, but I mean, that's just a part of the job. But I don't think he has any inherent bias against one platform or another. I just think he honestly is doing his job. And I streamed on Friday and I talked about what I thought happened. And I said, I thought he was just there shooting the shit with his friend, who's the co-host of the podcast. And he just was talking off the cuff, kind of talking with not really thinking about every single word that was coming out of his mouth. And it came across as him saying that HiFi Rush was a complete failure, which clearly is not the case based on everything we've seen so far with HiFi Rush, with stats and numbers that came out from sales on Steam within its first week to Tango Gameworks expanding. You don't expand unless you are successful. That would just make absolutely no sense. Everything pointing towards Tango Gameworks being a successful studio and HiFi Rush being a successful launch, even though they shadow dropped it, didn't have marketing, all of that type of stuff. So then a bunch of stuff came out here over the weekend. A lot of these articles just kind of playing off of what Jeff Grubb had said. And now Jeff Grubb has come out, created a video apologizing and pretty much saying what I said, which I actually believe. I know a lot of people don't believe journalists and stuff when they come out after the fact, but since I actually said that on my stream on Friday about what I thought happened, which was him just kind of talking, shooting the shit with his friend and stuff coming out wrong, and then him reiterating that on this apology video, I actually believe what he said. But so he talks about that, but he also talks about the fact that HiFi Rush is obviously not a failure, and he did not actually mean what he said. So let's listen to what Jeff Grubb has to say here.
And HiFi Rush. I'm glad they did that because the story was becoming based on what I said, but I didn't say this, but the story became HiFi Rush was a flop, a failure. And that's just not what I was going for at all. That's not what I was trying to say. I don't know what would have made that game a success in Microsoft's eyes. They're saying it is just without caveat. And I think it's clear that it was never going to be a traditional sort of measurement stick for that game because they did something new in terms of how they released it. They put it out as a shadow drop right after one of their shows where they didn't tease it at all. It was a complete surprise. And I think that puts it in a category where it's a bit of an experiment and they were trying to see what it can do. And at the end, the game got a ton of buzz. It got a ton of critical acclaim and a lot of fans talking about it.
So there you have it. I mean, this is a 10-minute video, so go and watch the entire thing if you're interested in what he has to say in regards to this entire thing. But he's essentially saying that he didn't mean it the way that the majority of the media took it, which was that HiFi Rush was a failure. And to be completely honest, from my perspective, based off of what I said on Friday during my stream, I still believe what I said. Is I don't think he meant to go out there and cause this entire thing. I think he was just, like he said, talking off the cuff with a friend, and it came out as something that it wasn't, which is they're looking at trying to decipher the scenario with Game Pass, with gaming, with games from Xbox, and if it makes a certain amount of money, which is less than the actual development cost of that game, how does Xbox make back that money in other ways, which is from microtransactions, from Game Pass subscriptions, and all that type of stuff. And I think based off of everything that we know, nobody actually knows the true answer because Microsoft doesn't really provide a lot of this information. But based on what we are seeing, what Xbox is doing, you could, I would say, make the assumption that they are making enough money to be able to continue to expand and to be successful with the strategy that they have right now with Xbox Game Pass. You look at Tango Gameworks expanding out, hiring more people. They're spending $70 billion on ABK. We know that's going to bring in a ton of money for Xbox, which will allow them to continue to invest in Xbox Game Pass and bring more games over. I think there's more positive information for Game Pass based off of things that Phil Spencer has said and based off of things that other executives at Xbox have talked about than there is negative. The one thing I will say is there's always this spin that is trying to be put onto Game Pass as being a negative thing. And I'm not sure why, because if you're a gamer out there and you look at Game Pass, the value is insane. It is the golden age of gaming, getting access to all of these games that you just right at your fingertips. You log on to Xbox and you go through the catalog of Game Pass games. There's always something to play. It's never been better. So I don't know why there's always such a negative spotlight and spin on Xbox Game Pass stuff, but we've seen plenty of information come out throughout the last couple of years showing that Xbox Game Pass has helped games make money, and it's been successful. Even though it will cannibalize some sales for these games, it is still a positive for a lot of these publishers and developers. And we have another one here, and this one is from Focus Entertainment. Now, they don't specifically say Xbox Game Pass here, unless I'm missing it, but I don't see it. They don't specifically say that was a direct effect, to be fair, but we do know Atomic Heart did release day one on Xbox Game Pass, and they're saying here that Atomic Heart exceeds expectations. Revenues increased by 36% at Focus Entertainment. So they put out 4 games during their previous fiscal year. They put out Shredder's Revenge, obviously successful, A Plague's Tale Requiem, Evil West, and then Atomic Heart. And 3 of those games all launched into Xbox Game Pass on day one. It's Shredder's Revenge, Plague Tale Requiem, and Atomic Heart. And their revenues increased by 36%. So say what you want about Xbox Game Pass. Say you cannibalize the sales. Obviously, it has a very net positive effect for certain publishers and developers out there. And we're getting another example of it here where a publisher like Focus Entertainment that has 3 of their 4 games released into Xbox Game Pass on day one is reporting that they increased the revenues by 36%. And again, Atomic Heart, one of the biggest ones that they did release into Game Pass day one, and a completely different strategy when you're comparing it to HiFi Rush, because HiFi Rush had no marketing, shadow dropped. Atomic Heart, Shredder's Revenge, Plague Tale, tons of marketing pre-release. People knew about it before it came out on Game Pass. There was all the marketing with Game Pass alone. So all of this stuff is pointing in the direction that Game Pass has helped out these big games more so than hinder it. And I think overall, if there was like a list of the positives for Game Pass versus the negatives, there will obviously be some negatives, but I think the list from what we have seen so far from actual information that has come out with numbers is that Game Pass has been successful for a lot of people out there. It's helping developers get their games to be seen. It's helping developers release stuff without having to worry about if they're even going to make money back. And then once their game comes out, if it's popular and people are talking about it, it goes on and it makes more money than in the previous games if they hadn't put it into Xbox Game Pass. One of the biggest examples that's always used is the No More Robots games from that developer who said, hey, they made more money after putting their games into Xbox Game Pass, and they want to put pretty much all their games to Game Pass going forward because of the results so far. So I think Game Pass here, from what we understand based off of stuff that has actually come out, has been positive more so than negative, but there always seem to be some negative spin towards it. And maybe there's people out there that just really want to prove it to be a failure. It is a disruptor within the gaming industry itself, especially when you're comparing it to the legacy models of like PlayStation and Nintendo, who also do extremely well. So maybe people just want it to go back to that. There's also the argument that you're just renting games to Game Pass. It's really never ending, but everything we've seen so far, until we see developers and publishers truly coming out, presenting us with numbers and facts that like, hey, it destroyed our game, or until you see Phil Spencer and Microsoft come out and actually have to change their strategy because they're just burning way too much money with Xbox Game Pass. I think until that stuff really does start to happen off of the information that's currently out there, we can assume that there is more of a net positive right now when it comes to Xbox Game Pass. At least that's the way I'm looking at it. But I'll leave the video there, guys. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know your thoughts on Game Pass, on the whole scenario with Jeff Grubb and HiFi Rush. I would love to know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.